Break 19. It's your boy Chicken about on the line, back from a very wet, rainy day up here in interior Alaska. This is going to be a good episode. Let's get started. So, today is going to be a little bit different. So we've done a lot of car talk so far, and yeah, that's going to be probably the primary focus, but there's also more stuff out there, you know. Don't get me wrong, I love cars, I love trucks, I love all that sort of stuff, but there's also a lot of other stuff I like. Pretty much anything cool, right? And you never know what you're going to get when you watch an episode or listen to an episode of Joes Road Show. And today is definitely going to be one out there. So, starting off, little story. So yesterday, I went and got me a new toy. Got me a little, AR pistol. I'm a gun guy, right? I like things that you pull a trigger, it go pop. And it makes a hole somewhere down that way somewhere. It's fun. And a little bit of a collector trying to when I have the money, and it's fun. I enjoy it. And I say that, so I hit my buddy up last night and see if he wanted to check it out, He's got a pond out there, and we kind of like it's like a gravel pit, pond. And we like to kind of just shoot stuff into the pond because watching water go splash is fun. And he got back with me today and was like, yeah, man, like, come on down. Like, I got a project you might be into, or you might just be bored out of your mind. I'm like, cool. Yeah, so me and James, we have pretty much the same interest, guns, cars, Yeah, so this man decided to go to the auction and bought a 69 kilovolt an hour or whatever. I don't know how they actually register generators that big, but a massive generator that he bought from the auction and had a winded block. It was a 4BT Cummins that was in it. All right, cool. And he was like, hey, help me swap this motor out. I'm like, all right, cool. Something different. I ain't worked on one of these before. And it ended up being the easiest motor swap. We had the old motor out and the new one back in 4 hours. It was super easy. He just so happened to have another motor that would bolt up, laying around, because these are the friends that I have, and that's kind of how I am, just with old GM garbage. So, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring that up. That's just a interesting project. I mean, how many buddies do you have that just hit you up like, yeah, let's go mag dump into a pond, and then we'll put a motor in a generator? Yeah, why not? Why would you not want to put a motor in a generator? That's just cool. And not just a generator, but a generator that could power my whole road if it wanted to. And also, it's 3-phase, so you could run some pretty cool stuff on that. More to come, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Hey, James, if you're listening, let's do some cool stuff. So, the main point of this video, I keep saying video. I started trying to do like a YouTube thing for a while, and it never went anywhere, and I found out that I absolutely hate editing videos. It's tedious and time-consuming, and there's two things that I don't like is tedious and time-consuming. So, the main subject of this here podcast, we'll get technical, is so I was laying here last night, and I watch YouTube a lot, and I'm just sitting here and I'm flipping through a rabbit hole of YouTube videos, and then I'm on Instagram, and so I'm listening to something on YouTube. I'm flipping through Instagram, and this post came up. It was saying something about it was like a cross section. It was like a piece of cable cut, and it was like the cable that runs the internet under the ocean. I'm like, what's that all about? Like, I figured, the internet was satellites, going everywhere and doing their thing. And I didn't know we had cables that ran the internet. Interesting. I have to look into this. So I started doing a little bit of research and went down yet another rabbit hole. So what I found out is, yeah, there's about 400, 450, like massive, like they're like between 2 and 7 inch cables, fiber optic cables that run under the oceans, and they actually transmit the internet between different continents and even islands. So they're they're between like 50 kilometers. So what's that, like 30 miles? And they can be 10,000 miles. And like, that is insane, right? So I didn't know how this worked. So I started doing some more looking. Um, they're big old fiber optic cables, and there's like, I don't know the actual name for them, but they're like base stations, right? The internet traffic from that, that area that cable's hooking up to goes to this like base station, and then it transmits through light through a fiber optic cable under the ocean, under the sea. I'm like, this is cool, right? This is something that a lot of people didn't know. I definitely didn't know. And I like I said, I figured it was all satellites, space age stuff. And so I'm looking into it, and I'm watching this documentary on it, and there are massive, like 7 inch fiber optic cables that run from New Jersey all the way to Europe, all the way to the UK, all the way to Spain. Like, that's like an 8,000 mile cable. Like, how does that even happen? So, turns out there's big old copper wires that run through them with the fiber optics, and it powers boosters every so often down the cable. And so fiber optic is basically a laser, a type of light that fires at a certain frequency, for different data to transmit the data. And that light can only travel so far down a fiber optic cable before it starts getting washed out, and before it starts getting fuzzy, to put it in simple terms. And these boosters are put right before it starts, washing out, and they keep it going and keep it clean. That way it transmits, nice and smooth. Well, one of these fiber optic cables can push 400 gigabytes a second through or through a cable under the ocean across 8,000 miles. That's a lot. Just for one cable. 400 gigabytes a second. That's impressive. Now take a gander at how many of these fiber optic cables are in one undersea, internet cable. Well, there's about 200 of them, depending on the cable. There's, different sizes and more, or I think 200 is pretty much the max, but still, that's a lot of data that can be pushed through that. And, there's a bunch of them coming on the East Coast and the West Coast across both of our, neighboring oceans, and there's a couple through the Gulf of Mexico. And like I said, there's probably 400 of these, and they run them on these purpose-built ships for doing it, and they just kind of ease across the ocean about 10 clicks, 10 kilometers an hour, and just lay in a cable. And they have little sensors in them that, like, if there's a problem with the cable, that they'll be able to find the problem in the cable, and they get cut and messed up all the time, because especially in shallower waters with fishing and boats and anchors and everything going on out there. And who knows, the Kraken, the Megalodon, who knows? It's the sea. There's a reason that I never went in the Navy. I am terrified of the ocean. Absolutely hate it. And if I'm going to go anywhere, I'm taking an airplane. I'd rather hit the water doing 600 miles an hour and call it a day, rather than sink and get eaten by something I have no idea exists. So hey, hats off to the guys that actually sit there on a boat for who knows how long, going across the sea, doing 10 clicks an hour, and just laying this cable and pulling it up and fixing the cable that's already down there. It's like, it's insane. But yeah, most of your data that gets, transferred, around the world goes through these cables, which is cool. It's definitely an old school technology. The tech has been around since the 1850s. For like when the telegraph was first coming around. Uh, I forget the exact year. It was somewhere around, mid 1850s. They actually ran a cable from the UK to the United States and sent a telegraph across it 170 years ago. So the technology has been around for a long time. Of course, back then it took about $100 to send one telegraph. Now you can send, thousands of gigabytes of data for virtually nothing. I don't think you could even calculate how much it costs to actually send one email across one of these cables. It's like barely there. And so that I found that pretty cool, just for the fact like they took a technology that's been around for so many years. The internet has only been mainstream since the 90s. I think it started coming out for public use in the late 80s, early 90s, and didn't actually take off and start being a viable use of communication for most people until the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's a fairly new way to use pretty old technology. And so that started me on a kind of different rabbit hole. And it was touched on a little bit in the documentary I was watching, but if you wanted to run a cable, like say a 5,000 mile cable, which is an insane amount of cable, that's about $300 or $400 million to make it all happen, to get it all made, and because it's fiber optic cable, it has to be made right, and then it's going in extreme conditions, and it's got to not come apart, and it's got to have special built ships to do it, which are already there. There's already companies that do it. Who pays for this? Because there's no one that really owns the internet, or at least that we know of. So who pays for it all? So it turns out AT&T, who a lot of you probably have your phone through, you're probably watching this on an AT&T tower. They own a good majority of the cables that all run under there. And okay, cool. And that, American company, sweet. And then, there's a Chinese company that owns a good majority under them. And then, Google and Microsoft actually own a few of them and pay for a little bit of it, which is kind of sketchy. I don't trust Google. Yeah, I'm talking to you, YouTube. Quit doing sketchy things. But, it's pretty cool to see how all that works and who all pays for it. And there's also a certain amount of money that comes from the different nations and the different governments that all these things connect to, and keep in the loop and keep in communications with everyone. So yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting thing. It's definitely a rabbit hole worth going down. I didn't go completely down it, but I did check it out a little bit last night. It's just not one of those things that you think about. You're on the internet all the time. I try to stay away from my phone if I can, but always keep coming back to just, flipping through Instagram, flipping through Facebook, and looking at truck pictures and looking at cats, and, love it. But you got to think, that picture of a cat that you're looking at, he's just like, can I have a cheeseburger? There's an old meme for you. And that meme has been under the ocean so many times, and it's still sitting right there on your phone. The internet is a weird thing. Yeah, it's a weird place. We already know that. But the internet itself is just a weird thing. That so much can go on and no one really knows how it works completely. You know, there's there's just so many things, and so many people are so good at using it. I mean, here I am, just pretty much talking about nothing, and who knows? Someone in China may be listening to this. That someone, you know, a couple doors down may be listening to this. But it's just a weird thing. And if you really think about it, it's like this shouldn't work, but it does. I guess DARPA got one thing right. Well, we'll give credit where credit's due. Quit spying on me, DARPA. Y'all are weird. So, but yeah. So all that, it's just an interesting rabbit hole to go down, and it's cool to see how things that you use every day actually work. And that goes for a lot of different things. Like, I bet most of y'all don't know how your refrigerator works, even though you're looking in it looking for cheese at 2 a.m. every night. You'll have that. It happens. There's just some nights you need cheese, but think about how your refrigerator works. Think about how your phone works. Think about how the internet works. Your TV. How it can do that much in that thin of a space. It's weird. Just kind of look into stuff like that. It's really interesting to kind of see these little like facts of how things are put together and how it's something that there's no way you could have ever thought of it, but someone did, and someone made it work. And I'm pretty sure that, like, you've come up with an idea off the top of your head, and you're just like, huh, that could be useful. And this is how we would do it. And then you've had a buddy that's been like, oh, no, dude, like, no, that's kind of pointless, and that's kind of a stupid thing to try to put effort into. Well, there's been a lot of ideas that started out with that conversation, and here we are using most of them every day. It's something that we couldn't ever, think that we would ever need, but now we can't ever imagine what we do without them. The difference is, if you have one of those ideas, hey, write it down. It takes like 3 seconds. Just like get on a notepad on your phone or whatever, and just be like, yeah, this thing, I can make this work. And then kind of look into it. And if you have the skills to be able to do whatever it is or build whatever it is, then give it a shot. What do you got to lose? There's nothing to lose. I don't know. Food for thought. I'd like to see what y'all have to say. Y'all have any weird ideas? Any things that you kind of thought about you need, but no one really makes it, or you can't find it, or you have a better way of doing something that's already being made or being done? I know I've had my share. Just remember, everyone remembers Edison for inventing the light bulb. Edison did not invent the light bulb. He just stole the idea from someone that worked for him, that thought about it and was like, this won't work. Don't be an Edison. Actually build the thing. But also don't be the guy that gave him the idea. If you come up with the idea, write it down. Like, hey, I thought about this. This is my thing. Will it work? I don't know. Don't be a Thomas Edison, and don't be the random dude that no one knows what his name is that actually invented the light bulb. Just for the fact that he invented the light bulb and no one knows what his name is. Don't be that guy. Think about it like a Nikola Tesla kind of deal. I swear, if that dude could market stuff, we would be driving around in flying cars. We'd be in the Jetsons right now. If Nikola Tesla knew how to market things and knew how to make them, get out there. But he kept so much stuff to himself. If Nikola Tesla had half the business sense that Edison had, no one would ever remember Thomas Edison. Nikola Tesla was trying to make DC work for houses, which is actually a pretty interesting idea. That may be an episode later. May have to talk about that. But for today, I'm about out of time. I appreciate y'all coming back for another episode, keeping listening to me. It means a lot. Y'all stay safe out there. Keep the shiny side up, and I'll catch y'all on the next trip. Bye.